There are moments when life surprises us with something so simple and so profound at the same time that it leaves us speechless. You're thinking of someone you haven't seen in years, and at that very instant your phone rings, and it's that person. You walk down the street with your mind full of doubts, and suddenly a sign on the wall seems to answer exactly what you were thinking. You look at the clock and the same number appears again, 11:11. Could it all just be coincidence? Or is there a secret language in which the universe speaks to us constantly? Spiritual synchronicities are those coincidences that cannot be explained by logic yet leave an imprint on the soul. They make us feel that something greater is at play, that there is an invisible thread connecting our mind, our heart, and the forces of the cosmos. And although many call them simple coincidences, they are in fact messages, reminders that we are not alone, that we are part of a tapestry far vaster and more mysterious than we imagine. The psychologist Carl Gustav Jung coined the term synchronicity to describe those meaningful coincidences that seem charged with significance even though they have no direct causal relationship. But beyond psychology, these experiences are, at their core, a bridge between the human and the divine. Every time a synchronicity crosses your path, it's as if the universe were saying, "Here I am. I hear you. Keep trusting." Picture this. Someone is going through a moment of hopelessness. They don't know whether to change jobs, whether their relationship makes sense. They can't find direction. One ordinary afternoon, they walk into a bookstore with no intention of buying anything. They wander distracted among the shelves, and, suddenly, a book falls by itself right at their feet. They open it, and on the first page they read a line that answers the question they've been silently asking for some time. That seemingly insignificant instant becomes a transformative sign. That is the essence of synchronicity, uniting the outer and the inner in the same pulse, showing that what you feel within echoes in what happens without. It is a reminder that the universe is not an indifferent place but a living mirror that responds to your emotions, thoughts, and vibrations. And here arises a question that will open our journey. What if synchronicities were, in fact, an invitation to awaken? A gentle yet powerful call to open your eyes and understand that everything is connected, that the divine manifests in the everyday, that the soul has a language, and that language is the signs we sometimes ignore. Today we are going to discover that language together. We will explore how to recognize it, how to interpret it, and, above all, how to live it with an open heart. What synchronicities are and how they differ from a simple coincidence. When we speak of spiritual synchronicities, we are not referring to just any random coincidence. A coincidence is, for example, running into an old friend on the street because you both live in the same city and frequent similar places. That is statistically probable. A synchronicity, on the other hand, is when you cross paths with that person at the exact moment you were thinking about them, right after wondering whether you should rekindle a lost relationship. The encounter doesn't just happen, it is charged with deep personal meaning. The essential difference lies in vibration. A coincidence is neutral. It does not move your inner world. A synchronicity, however, resonates with your soul, awakens emotions, sparks reflection, and seems to open an invisible portal to understanding. It is as if the universe, in perfect coordination, were weaving a scene just for you. Carl Jung said that synchronicities are the manifestation of an acausal connecting principle. That is, there is no visible cause and effect, but there is a meaning that links the events. A simple example. You dream of a strange symbol, and the next day someone you barely know talks to you about that very same symbol, as if they had read your dream. No cause explains it, but the meaning is undeniable. On the spiritual path, synchronicities are much more than curious phenomena. They are the way life itself guides us, confirms us, and encourages us to keep moving forward. They work as signs on the highway of existence, and although we may not always understand their message immediately, they generate a quiet certainty. You are on the right path. One fascinating aspect is that synchronicities tend to appear at key moments. When we are in crisis, when we doubt, when we need an answer, they burst in like sparks. And they don't appear just once, but repeatedly, as if reality were insisting on showing us that there is something we must pay attention to. Imagine you want to start a new project. A few days later, someone recommends a book that speaks exactly about it. Later, you hear a song on the radio whose lyrics seem to describe your situation. Then you stumble upon a talk online that answers the questions you've been holding inside. If you pay attention, you'll notice a pattern. It's not that the world has changed, it's that your awareness has opened, and in opening, it began to recognize what was already there. Here is another key. Synchronicity is not an isolated event. It is an ongoing conversation with the universe. You emit a vibration, an intention, a need, and the cosmos responds with symbols, encounters, and repetitions. So the next time something like that happens, ask yourself, what is life trying to tell me? What does this mean to me right now? Because the message is not universal or generic. It is always intimate, personal, woven just for you. And in that instant, you will realize that coincidence as we were taught does not exist, but rather a tapestry of signs that reveal themselves at just the right time. How to recognize synchronicities in everyday life, with concrete examples. The first thing you need to know is that synchronicities are not reserved for a select few. They don't appear only to the chosen ones, or to those who have meditated for years. They are available to everyone, at every moment. What happens is that most people live so distracted by routine, external noise, and worries that they let these signals pass by unnoticed. Recognizing a synchronicity is learning to see the extraordinary in the ordinary. It is opening a channel of perception and sensitivity to the small details that once seemed insignificant. A very common example is repeated numbers. 1111, 2222, or sequences like 333 or 444. Many people look at the clock and smile when they see them, without thinking much more. But when those numbers appear again and again in different contexts, in a receipt, on a license plate, at the exact time of an important message, it is a reminder from the universe that you are in alignment, that your thoughts and the flow of life are synchronized. Another example is songs. Perhaps you've been carrying doubts in your heart for days, and you turn on the radio just as a song begins whose lyrics seem written for you. You don't just hear it, you feel it as a direct response. That's not coincidence. It's vibration attracting vibration. Unexpected encounters also happen this way. You are considering changing your career path, and at a casual gathering someone shows up who works exactly in the field you dream of entering. Not only that, they offer you advice that opens a door. That kind of situation is a sign that the universe is conspiring with you, showing you that your intention has resonance. Dreams fall into this category too. Some nights you dream of a place or a person, and the next day, without looking for it, you find that very place or receive news from that person. The boundary between the inner and the outer dissolves, revealing that everything is part of the same web of meaning. The key to recognizing synchronicities lies in your level of presence. When you're running on autopilot, everything becomes noise. But when you choose to live attentively, with an open heart, you begin to notice patterns, repetitions, and symbols. You start to see how life speaks to you in a secret language that was always there. A good habit is to pause whenever something surprises you, even if it seems small. Ask yourself, what was I feeling just before this happened? What question was I carrying in my mind? Because synchronicity almost always responds to something that was already vibrating inside you. Little by little, you will discover that it's not about chasing signs, but about letting them find you. And when they do, the feeling is unmistakable. A subtle shiver, a sudden peace, a certainty that doesn't come from reason but from the soul. In this way, everyday life becomes a sacred stage. What once seemed like a simple clock, a random song, or a chance encounter reveals itself as a wink from the universe, reminding you that you do not walk alone. Inspiring examples of synchronicities that transformed lives. There are stories that clearly show us the transformative power of synchronicities. Stories in which the improbable becomes such a powerful sign that it changes the course of a life. Think of a woman who has spent months wondering whether she should move to another city to start over. Fear holds her back, but the restlessness doesn't go away. One day, walking through her neighborhood, she passes by a newsstand and a headline catches her attention, "A New Beginning." The next day, She receives an unexpected email with a job offer precisely in that city she had been considering. Days later, a friend who knows nothing about her thoughts casually says, "Have you thought about moving? I think that place would be perfect for you." 3 different signs, all within a week, all pointing in the same direction. She interprets it as a push from the universe, takes the step, and her life expands. Another case is that of a man going through a deep depression. One night, with no energy for anything, he turns on the television and finds a documentary about butterflies. He hears the phrase, "The butterfly is born only when the caterpillar believes its world has ended." That phrase hits him like a lightning bolt. The next day, in the park, a butterfly lands on his shoulder and stays there for several seconds, as if the message had materialized. That double synchronicity inspires him to seek help and begin an inner transformation process that eventually leads him to become a therapist, helping others. There are also synchronicities linked to love. Many couples tell how they met in almost magical ways. A woman recalls missing a train one morning, something that made her angry. But on the next train, she met the person who would later become her life partner. Years later, when she remembered that accidental loss, she understood it had not been a mistake but a perfect adjustment from the universe. There are even collective stories. For example, entire communities that form from improbable encounters. A group of people who, without planning, end up meeting to launch a spiritual, artistic, or social project that impacts thousands. Each one arrives with their own story, but all discover that the pieces fit together as if an invisible force had convened them. These stories inspire because they remind us of something fundamental. Synchronicities don't appear to entertain us. They appear to guide us towards something greater. They serve as reminders that life is not chaotic, but profoundly ordered, even if we can't always understand that order right away. When we hear these stories, we can feel something within us awaken. Perhaps we remember our own signs, those moments when everything seemed to align with impossible precision. And we understand that the universe has always been speaking. It's just that sometimes it's hard for us to listen. The question is, what do we do when these signs appear? How do we move from being inspired to actually integrating them into our lives? That will be our next exploration. How to interpret synchronicities and turn them into spiritual guidance. One of the most common questions is, how can I know what a synchronicity means? Because even when the sign is right in front of us, the message is not always obvious. And this is where interpretation plays an essential role. The first step is to recognize that synchronicities do not have a universal meaning, but a personal one. What may represent a clear answer for you might be just another detail for someone else. For example, if someone often sees butterflies, they might interpret them as symbols of freedom or transformation. But if you see a butterfly right after losing a loved one, you might interpret it as a message of presence and continuity. The second step is to pay attention to what you were feeling or thinking just before the synchronicity occurred. The signs almost always respond to an inner state. A doubt, an emotion, an unspoken question. If you were thinking about changing jobs and suddenly 3 different references to new beginnings appear, the meaning is fairly clear. Another key point is repetition. A single coincidence might seem curious, but when signs repeat themselves within a short period of time, the message gains strength. The universe rarely whispers just once. It tends to insist until we stop and listen. It is also important to develop intuition. This is not about searching for meanings in symbol dictionaries or predetermined lists. It is about feeling within yourself what resonates. Intuition is the bridge between the sign and the message that truly matters to you. That said, interpreting doesn't mean obsessing. Many people make the mistake of trying to read a message into absolutely everything, and that only creates anxiety. The art lies in finding balance, being attentive and receptive, but not forcing meanings where there are none. A useful practice is keeping a synchronicity journal. Write down the meaningful coincidences, the context in which they appeared, what you were feeling, and how you interpreted them. Over time, You will begin to see patterns and to understand how the universe communicates with you in a unique way. And here comes the deepest part. Synchronicities don't just speak to you, they align you. When you learn to recognize them and trust them, you stop walking in fear and begin walking in confidence. You understand that you don't need to have all the answers, because life shows you step by step what you need to know. In other words, synchronicities are more than signs. They are spiritual guides that strengthen your faith. They remind you that you are not lost, that there is a purpose on your path, even if you don't see it yet. Thus, each meaningful coincidence becomes a silent compass, marking directions, clarifying doubts, confirming steps. And even though the mind may want to explain it, the heart knows how to recognize it. Because in the end, interpreting synchronicities is not a mental exercise but an act of trust, opening yourself to mystery and letting the universe speak in its own language. Simple practice to attract and recognize synchronicities. Synchronicities are not tricks of fate reserved for a chosen few, but natural sparks of life that appear more clearly when we are attentive and receptive. That's why the best way to attract them is not to force them, but to open ourselves to them with awareness and gratitude. Here is a simple practice you can begin today. 1. Inner silence. Spend a few minutes each day quieting your mind. It could be through deep breathing, meditation, or simply walking in silence. Mental noise is like a cloud that hides the sky. When you clear it, the signs begin to shine more clearly. 2. Set a clear intention. You don't need to ask for something complicated. It's enough to formulate a question from the heart. What is my next step? Am I on the right path? What should I learn from this situation? The universe responds more easily when it knows what you are seeking to understand. 3. Observe carefully. Throughout the day, pay attention to what repeats itself. Numbers, phrases, songs, encounters. Even what seems random may hide a message if it appears at the right moment. The key is not to overlook what captures your attention. 4. Write down what happens. Carry a small notebook or use your phone to record these coincidences. Writing them down not only helps you remember them, but also sends a message to the universe that you value its language. This practice strengthens your sensitivity and makes synchronicities more frequent. 5. Connect with gratitude. Each time you receive a sign, even if you don't immediately understand its meaning, give thanks. Gratitude opens a direct channel to the divine. It's like saying, I have seen your message, I trust you. That attitude multiplies experiences of synchronicity. A practical example. Imagine you've been seeking clarity about a decision. After your meditation, you go outside and notice that 3 times, in different places, the same word or symbol related to your situation appears. You write it down, you give thanks, and even if you still don't know how to act, you carry the certainty that an answer is on its way. The point of the practice is not to live obsessed with signs, but to learn to coexist with them naturally. With time, you will see how the universe accompanies you with surprising precision. It's like dancing with life. You take a step, it responds. You listen, it speaks. You give thanks, it surrounds you with new clues. And the most beautiful part is that, by opening yourself to this language, you also transform your way of living. The anxiety of wanting to control everything softens, because you trust that you are not alone. You understand that each day is full of divine winks waiting to be noticed. Remember, it's not about attracting something external, but awakening your sensitivity to what is already happening. Synchronicities were always there. The difference is that now you will have the eyes and the heart ready to recognize them. Deepening. Why synchronicities appear in times of crisis or transformation. If you look closely at your own story, you'll notice that the most powerful synchronicities almost never appear in moments of calm or routine. They arise, rather, in times of crisis, of transition, when life seems to place you before an unknown threshold. Why does this happen? Because a crisis is, in essence, fertile ground for awakening. When everything is under control, we walk on autopilot. But when the ground shakes beneath our feet, our awareness opens, our senses sharpen, and we begin to look for guiding signs. In those spaces of vulnerability, the universe takes the opportunity to show itself more clearly. Imagine someone who loses their job. Uncertainty overwhelms them, and they don't know how to move forward. Exactly during that period, strange things begin to happen. A friend contacts them to talk about a project. A phrase in a book seems written just for them. An opportunity appears from the least expected place. These coincidences, which at another time might have gone unnoticed, now become lights in the darkness. Synchronicities also intensify during processes of spiritual transformation. When a person begins a meditation practice, opens their heart to forgiveness, or decides to heal deep wounds, the energy that moves their life changes. And that new vibration begins to attract experiences aligned with the change. It's as if the universe were saying, "I heard you. Here are the confirmations you need to keep moving forward." Another interesting aspect is that in times of crisis, we are more willing to listen. The rational mind weakens a bit in the face of uncertainty, and the soul has more room to speak. That's when we perceive as signs what had always been there but we used to ignore. History is full of examples of great discoveries that were born of synchronicities during difficult times. Inventors, artists, scientists, and spiritual leaders recount how the pieces fit together mysteriously just when it seemed everything was lost. As if chaos were not an obstacle but the prelude to clarity. This teaches us something valuable. Do not fear crises. They are portals. And although in the midst of pain or confusion it may seem impossible to see it, life is always leaving you clues to guide you. Synchronicities are those crumbs of light on the dark path, small confirmations that there is a purpose behind what you are living. That's why, every time you find yourself going through a difficult moment, open your eyes and heart more than ever. Ask yourself, what signs is life showing me now? Trust that, even if you don't understand the full picture, the universe is painting a work of art that time will reveal in its beauty. In this way, you will understand that crises are not punishments but calls to awaken. And synchronicities are the silent proof that you never walk alone, even when everything seems to be collapsing. Common mistakes when interpreting synchronicities and how to avoid them. Just as synchronicities can illuminate our path, there is also the risk of misinterpreting them. When we don't know how to handle them, we can fall into confusions that, instead of helping us, take us further away from the clarity we seek. The first mistake is obsessing over the signs. Some people, upon discovering this phenomenon, begin to look for meanings in absolutely everything. Every word, every number, every glance. That obsession creates anxiety and ends up blocking the true magic of synchronicity. Remember, signs appear when they must, not when you force them. The second mistake is wanting to see only what is convenient. That is, interpreting every coincidence as confirmation of what we already want, without questioning whether it is really what the soul needs. For example, someone who wants to stay in a toxic relationship might hear a romantic song on the radio and take it as a sign that they should remain there, when in reality the universe has been showing much clearer signals that it is time to let go. A third mistake is disconnecting from intuition and relying only on external meanings. Searching for lists on the internet or books that dictate what each number means can serve as reference, but they should never replace what your heart feels in that moment. Synchronicities are an intimate language between you and the universe. No one else can tell you exactly what they mean for you. The fourth mistake is ignoring action. Many people recognize the synchronicity, get excited, feel that everything makes sense, but then do nothing about it. The sign loses strength if you don't turn it into movement. A synchronicity is a push, not a completed destiny. You must take the step it inspires. Another frequent mistake is confusing synchronicity with superstition. Believing that everything is a negative or positive omen can lead to living in fear. Synchronicities are not meant to scare you or dictate your life, but to guide you gently. If a sign causes panic, You are probably interpreting it from the ego and not from the soul. How to avoid these mistakes? Keep an attitude of openness, not obsession. Always ask yourself, what do I feel inside when I see this? Don't stay on the surface. Look for coherence between the sign and the process you are living. Turn inspiration into concrete action. Imagine you repeatedly see the word change in different places. If you just write it down and smile, the sign remains in the air. But if you take it as a push to dare to start that project, leave a harmful habit, or reconcile with someone, then the synchronicity fulfills its purpose. Ultimately, signs don't come to control you or to decide for you, but to remind you that you are accompanied, that the universe is in dialogue with you. The art lies in listening with serenity, interpreting with intuition, and acting with trust. If you achieve this balance, synchronicities will stop being fleeting curiosities and become a true map of light on your spiritual path. Integration. How to make synchronicities a daily spiritual compass. Up to now, we have understood what synchronicities are, how to recognize them, and how to interpret them. The next step is even deeper. To integrate them as part of your daily life, to the point that they become a spiritual compass that guides you with confidence. Integration begins with a change of perspective. Instead of seeing life as a collection of disconnected events, you begin to perceive it as a fabric full of meaning. Every conversation, every encounter, every word can be part of a greater message. This mindset transforms routine into a sacred stage. A powerful tool is the Synchronicity Journal. We mentioned it earlier, but here it takes on a central role. When you record your experiences, date, emotions, and possible meanings, you not only create memory, but also train your mind and heart to recognize patterns. Over time, you'll see that certain signs always appear at key moments, as if they were your own energetic signatures from the universe. Another way to integrate them is through reflective meditation. Each day, at the end of your day, spend a few minutes reviewing what you experienced and ask yourself, was there something that stood out more than usual? Were there repetitions, symbols, or phrases that stood out? This practice calms the mind and amplifies your perception of the invisible. It is also essential to cultivate trust in life. A synchronicity loses its power if you constantly doubt it. You don't need to understand everything instantly. It is enough to receive the message, give thanks, and take the next step. Deep understanding often comes with time, when you look back and realize how all those pieces fit together perfectly. Integration also implies inspired action. Every synchronicity is a call. If life shows you repeatedly that you need to heal a relationship, start a project, or take care of your body, it's not enough to get excited. You must take concrete steps. Otherwise, the message fades. Lastly, make gratitude a constant habit. Thanking for each sign, big or small, opens a channel of reciprocity. The universe responds to a grateful heart with more clarity, more flow, and more synchronicities. It's like tuning a radio. The more you adjust the frequency, the clearer the signal becomes. Integrating synchronicities doesn't mean being fixated on them all the time. It means rather maintaining a state of openness and trust, knowing that the universe has infinite ways of communicating with you. Some signs will be small and others huge, but all serve the same purpose, to remind you that you do not walk alone, that a greater order is supporting your life. When you manage to live this way, each day becomes a dialogue with the divine. And the compass is no longer outside, but within you, guided by those signs that appear just when you need them. Inspiring closing and call to action. Now that we've come this far, perhaps you can already recall several synchronicities from your own life. Maybe moments when a coincidence gave you peace, brought you clarity, or reminded you that the universe was taking care of you. And if none come to mind, don't worry. Now that your perception is more open, you'll soon begin to notice them. Spiritual synchronicities are not isolated coincidences. They are bridges between your soul and the cosmos. They are the way life tells you, you are not alone, keep going, trust. Sometimes they arrive as a number that repeats, other times as an unexpected phrase, a chance encounter, or even a dream that comes true upon waking. The form doesn't matter. The essence is that they resonate deep within you. But the most important thing is that these signs don't appear to entertain or distract you. They arrive to help you grow, to invite you to make decisions aligned with your truth, to remind you that your path has purpose. They are like lights on a dark road. They don't show you the entire journey, but they do reveal the next step you must take. So the next time you experience a synchronicity, don't ignore it. Pause, breathe, and ask yourself, what is life trying to tell me right now? Don't look for complicated answers. Listen to your intuition. Your heart always knows more than your mind can explain. And if you are going through a difficult time, open your spiritual eyes even wider. Because in times of crisis, synchronicities multiply as reminders that even in the midst of the storm, the universe continues speaking to you with love and precision. Integrating these experiences into your life is an act of faith, trust, and gratitude. You don't need to control everything. You just need to be present and receptive. Life takes care of the rest, and it never stops conspiring in your favor. Dear soul, remember this. What you see today as a simple coincidence could tomorrow be the key piece of your story. Nothing is disconnected. Everything makes sense in the great tapestry of existence. And you are part of that divine weaving, held by invisible threads that cross paths to guide you, inspire you, and remind you of your true essence. If this message resonated with you, I invite you to keep exploring, to not ignore the signs that appear in your daily life. The universe has a language, and you are already learning it. Stay open, trust the process, and allow the magic of synchronicities to accompany you with every step. And if you wish to continue deepening in themes like this, join us here at Emote Chronicles. Every week we share reflections and teachings that nourish the soul and expand awareness. Subscribe, activate the bell, and be part of this community of seekers of light. Because in the end, it's not about searching for answers outside, but remembering that the universe already dwells within you, speaking through signs that, from now on, you will know how to recognize.